as we do that, things are going to be a little bit bumpy, but I appreciate you guys hanging out. Those of you that have stopped in, salute, brothers. Uh, so look, I'm just gonna dive right in. I'm not really expecting anybody. Like I said, I was supposed to get this thing popping about 30 minutes ago, and YouTube didn't like my intro so much. So what I did want to do is I wanted to ask a question, and I'm just gonna jump right into it. Do me a huge favor, just hit that one button if you can hear me. Okay, there we go. So the question is: are Americans intellectually curious? Um, I'm gonna whittle that down to are African Americans intellectually curious, but I just want to start with Americans as a whole. And the reason why I came to this is because as I go through and give myself an education on American history, I wonder, with having all this information at the tips of my fingers, I wonder if everyone else has the same type of curiosity I have. And, the more I learn, the more I question whether or not, people care. That sounds silly, but I mean, when you're spending your time trying to educate yourself, you wonder, well, is anybody else doing the same thing? And when we encounter so many things in our day to day, whether that be the roads that we drive on, the media that we consume, the question becomes, does any of this stuff make us curious? Do people take the next logical step in learning anything, or do we just kind of accept the information that's given to us? And I just want to touch on this really quick. I'm going to shift this over here, and you guys can follow along with me really quickly, and maybe you can kind of get where I'm going. Intellectual curiosity, also called epistemic curiosity, is curiosity that leads to an acquisition of general knowledge. It can include curiosity about such things as what objects are composed of, the underlying mechanisms of systems, mathematical relationships, languages, social norms, and history. It can be differentiated from another type of curiosity that does not lead to the acquisition of general knowledge, such as curiosity about the intimate secrets of other people. It is a facet of openness to experience in the five-factor model used to describe human personalities. A similar need for cognition and typical intellectual engagement. Now it's like, Alvin, like, what do you mean by all of this thing? Like, what are you talking about? Well, when we consume so much media, I always wonder, for me, I always ask, for me at least, what's the next logical question, right? And if there's something that I don't understand, I typically do some research. I dig in, and it's kind of, the more I learn, the more I realize that it's people, from what I can tell, maybe just flat out don't care, right? There's an intellectual class who are more engaged, do their research more. Yeah, there are, and and here's a question about that, right? Like, when you get a parking ticket, I don't know if you've gotten a parking ticket anytime soon, but this parking ticket might be $68, right? $71. You know, does anyone ever ask how, like, where you get that number in particular? Like, are you ever curious about that? Right? Like, when your insurance company figures out, what it is that you have to pay, right? Obviously for those of us that are curious about that kind of thing, or are educated about that kind of stuff, we understand that the insurance company takes a calculation as to how many people they have and how much money and who's likely to get in an accident, and then they spit out a number, right? But do we ever dig into the policies, or dig into how the policy works, right? We just don't, right? We pay until something happens, and then we deal with it as it comes. We don't really know how the insurance works. Most people don't. So with this lack of intellectual curiosity, when you engage with other people in the world, I guess my question is, is there a separation? Should there be a separation between the two? I've the more I learn, the more I realize that, the more I learn, the more I realize what I don't know, and it seems as though I'm, out on an island with that, and as I'm starting to put this picture together, at least what this channel is going to be built from, I wonder, I think about how I'm going to communicate, right? I'm thinking about how I'm going to get my point across. And I'm trying to tap into people's curiosity. But the more I start to do this stuff, I start to realize I don't really know that people care that much. And so I think as I start to put this picture together, it made me want to at least sit back and say, people have to want to learn, right? People have to want to get that information, right? That general knowledge. And that's the thing, it's general knowledge. We're not even talking about like rocket science. Now, part of the reason why I started this channel in the first place is because I had an interesting relationship with American history, meaning that I never knew, for what I knew of American history, it seemed that my response to it, or how it affected me, it didn't affect everyone else the same. And I never understood why. People speak of slavery so flippantly, and I never understood why. I see, or I witness, people that look like me being mistreated in the media by government officials on a regular basis, and people don't seem to get that upset. And I always wondered why. Which brings me to this question. Are Americans, do they have intellectual curiosity? Do people really want to know about X, Y, or Z? And it seems, from what I can tell, that they don't. And then I follow that up with, are African Americans intellectually curious? And it seems even less so. So for me, the next logical question is why? And it seems like, Chuku in the chat has basically summed it up, that most people are passive consumers of shallow gossip. And there is indeed an intellectual class who are more engaged, that do their own research. I guess my question is, if you had to put a number on it, right? What percentage would you think would be the intellectual class versus the gossip class? We'll call it the gossip class. And when you start tearing into those numbers, I mean, how does that affect how you move through the world? Or does it affect how you move through the world at all? So 80-20, which is exactly why Project 80-20 came about, believe it or not. 80-20. The craziest part about that is the reason why I chose 80-20 was that damn number comes up everywhere you go. Originally, 80-20 I realized when I was in sales, and I would in some of these sales seminars that I'd go to, they'd always bring up the 80-20 rule. And a lot of these leadership seminars, they'd always bring up the 80-20 rule, that 20% of your staff is going to generally do 80% of the work. And it happened in all the sales jobs I had. The top 20% generally did 80% of the work. And that theme carries itself in life all throughout. And so basically the Project 80-20 is a fitness app that I'm building, and I use that same principle in the fitness aspect. But that makes a lot of sense that 80% of the population would be more of the gossip class, whereas the 20% being the few that are intellectually curious. Well, why do I bring that up? Well, as I'm, like I said, digging into, what's been happening in the media recently with Kyrie Irving and Kanye West and so on, with the Stacey Abrams and the election that just happened, we've got so many people that are speculating as to what has happened and why things have happened the way that they are. But it looks as though no one goes that extra step and asks the extra question, or does a simple Google search for that matter. And so as I start putting this story together, at least for this particular channel, and again, taking all these really complicated themes and things and trying to break them down to really simple concepts, I'd like to just got to get a feel for, how engaged or how interested people really are into getting the who, what, when, where, how, and why, right? It seems as though people are perfectly comfortable getting the headlines and that just being the end of it. So as I build this plane, I will continue to come back to, this intellectual curiosity question, because, so many people would rather skate through consuming whatever subject matter makes them feel good and keep it moving. So as you say, the average person is not that smart or intellectually curious. If you want to draw a large audience, it's better. And and here's and I have to be honest. Drawing a large audience isn't my you always want to draw a large audience. Let's say that. You always want to draw a large audience. But my calling seems to help as many young men, particularly black men, answer some of the questions that are bubbling around in their head. And, for me, over the past 2 years, I've locked myself in a room and done a refresher on American history so that I could understand the politics, so I could understand the plight of the African American man here in this country. And and like I said, as I've started to get that refresher, you know, dig in a little bit, makes tie some loose ends with American history. Um, it's been interesting because it's not very difficult to draw the lines. Is I guess what I'm kind of getting at, right? The 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 line between the Atlantic slave trade and American chattel slavery, post Reconstruction Jim Crow, our current Jim Crow 2.0. And the reality is there's only 150, 200 years difference between the two. But there are clear lines that you can draw from one all the way to the other. But we don't act or treat them as such. And there, yeah, absolutely. Gerald Horn there's great books that are written. That's kind of what I was getting at, right? There's so much information at the tips of our fingertips, right? Like we have supercomputers in our pockets, but we don't pick them up. We don't pick them up. We don't look. And I guess, like I said, my next logical question is, why do you think that is? Right? So we know that the majority of us are not that curious. Why not? Is it because it's just not comfortable? You know, is it because it's doesn't make us feel warm and fuzzy inside? I can understand why white folks kind of don't dig in, right? The beauty of American racism is plausible deniability, right? We've all heard it before. I didn't know I couldn't do that, or I didn't know that's why they live over there, or I didn't know that, right? That's what we're used to, right? But for black folks, you know, why is everyone so comfortable with baby mama-ism, right? Like, why is everyone so comfortable dropping N-bombs, right? A word that's so toxic that people can't even say it without cringing a little bit, right? Why is it that you know we stay as a people in the state that we do without asking any questions, right? Why don't we hold our political figures accountable at all, right? Like, go into Google or YouTube and search white woman beaten by the cops, and you don't see a white woman pop up into the search until like 9, 10, or 11. It's nothing but black people getting beat up first. And no one asks why that is. Post 9/11 represented a shift from intelligence. Yeah. So here's, I guess, the next question. I mean, is this, so obviously this is the way things are going to be, right? As far as our relationship with information at this point, it seems as though. A larger audience will come with effort and consistency if you draw a crowd immediately. Shout out to the Roger Report Live. Brother, I watch you on the low every morning. Every single morning, I'm watching your show. I'm in there. I can't always comment, but I'm always watching your show. So shout out to you. Just you even being in here making a comment to me, brother, is beyond me. I can die happy at this point, and I'm not being facetious. So, and since you're in the chat and you've been doing this for such a long time, as a creator, and I know as a creator how hard it is to get up every day and to turn that camera on and to man, like I said, you don't understand. Seeing you on the screen right now I would do a backflip if I could. As a creator, knowing you have to get up and get in front of that, get on that microphone every day. And where do you find the will to continue to do it every day? Because the only way you could continue to put in the type of work that you do is because you love it. And you're making a difference. Where do you find, because like I said, the reason for this, one, shout out to Dennis Sperling, because he's the gentleman that kicked me in the butt and pushed me off the end of the diving board to do this thing. But, like I said, the more I learn and the more I dig in, I wonder why other Black folks aren't more upset about our state of being. I wonder why more Black folks aren't a little more aggressive about, their political stances and so on and so forth. And so as I'm building this plane and as I'm, getting my feet wet and starting to do this, I wanted to start here because this for me seems like the logical place to start. Intellectual curiosity. People aren't curious about their, not even, and again, general knowledge. And I'm just going to flip through this one more time because I think it's important. Curiosity that leads to an acquisition of general knowledge. It can include curiosity about such things as what objects are composed of, the underlying mechanisms of systems, mathematical relationships, languages, social norms, and history. And this, to me, seems so basic. Such a basic concept. I'm always curious. Why is the sky blue? Why is water wet? But here we are in this place, right? We're in this country where we can see with our own eyes how we're treated differently. We could hear with our own ears. People are telling us every day how worthless or how little they think of us. But we just kind of take it on the chin. And again, obviously not all of us, not all of us feel this way, but a lot of us do. A lot of us do. And I'm not going to keep all you guys here all day. Like I said, this is kind of my initial test stream. Seemed like a great place to start. To be honest with you, I thought I would just be doing this by myself with nobody watching. But here I sit. And so I don't think you gentlemen understand how thankful and grateful I am, to even see that you would click the link to even, to even click the link. I am humbled. But I think that, let's see, I love my people for already accomplished. I love the idea of where we could be if we just continue to put forth the effort. I believe change is coming. And I think so too. One of the next, one of the things I'm working on as we speak, as soon as we get off of this, is that, I think that the NBA is single-handedly bringing Black people together in a way that very few other things have. I think that ESPN is bringing Black people together in a way that very few people have. I think this public emasculation of Black men, this public, buck breaking, these public hangings, virtual hangings, are I think waking a lot of us up. And I mentioned on Dennis Sperling's, on one of his lives, that as I explore YouTube and I've found the Black manosphere, I realize that there are a lot of very educated, well-spoken Black men that have been ducking arrows and dodging bullets for their entire lives, just trying to get by, trying to avoid these pitfalls, that these traps that they lay for us. And I'm realizing that there's a lot of us out there. I am realizing that we are overrepresented in the media for the bad behavior. You know, there's a statistic that I'm not sure you guys are aware of, that us only being 6 to 7% of the population, we're represented in criminality in the media 80% of the time. And I'm working out some visuals for that as tools for people to use, but we're by far overrepresented in the media for criminality. And that's the narrative that everyone falls onto. And just like everyone else, as I'm growing up, that's all we see. But that's not my lived experience, right? I don't know a deadbeat father. You know, I know some gangbangers and some criminals, but not 80% of the black men that I know are criminals. It's the polar opposite. I know very few, but that's not what's represented in the media. And that has always been something that's never set well with me since I was a child. But then I get to hear, and you look at FBI crime data, you look at, you know, the CDC, and you look at the raw data and the information, and you realize that we've been lied to the entire time. And that was the motivation for me to do what I'm doing right now, realizing that, you know, black man, we've been lied to. You know, we've been lied to our entire lives. We've been told that we're less than. We've been told that we're not good enough. We were told that we're not intelligent. We've been told that we're violent. We've been told that we are criminals our entire lives. And that if you just happen to be not one of those things, then you're an outlier, right? They even make up a term for it, right? Back in the day, they called it the talented 10. Right? Oh, he might be one of the talented 10%. To make an excuse for a black person, a black man that might not fall into that category. And we get to live our entire lives thinking that that's what it is. Well, the internet is a wonderful thing. YouTube is a wonderful thing. We can compare notes and we can share data. And now we know that all of that has been a lie. Now, unfortunately, the lovely ladies and our counterparts don't feel the same way that we do. And that's unfortunate. And this is why I'm focusing on men. I'm focusing on people that look like me. So, like I said, I think I'm not trying to keep you guys forever. I just wanted to, you know, just kind of go over this one little term because it's a jumping off point for what I've got coming up in the future. And finding an audience that's indeed wants to learn, indeed wants to understand why things are the way that they are. The content that I'm going to make is going to be for you, for those that really want understanding. And, you know, I think that there is a market for this kind of content. And I don't think it necessarily needs to be sensationalized with a lot of the bad behavior, so on and so forth. I think that there's a whole lot more thoughtful black men out there, thoughtful men in general, white, black, or otherwise, that want to have a better understanding of what we're dealing with here. We're in this vast world where people have been walking the earth for thousands of years, you know, and this is a very recent discovery. And with this recent discovery, we haven't been taking advantage of it the way that we probably should. And if it means anything to me, you know, I want to help men that look like me help them navigate and make sense of what's been going on here. So I'm not going to keep you guys. Eventually I'm going to work this into being a daily thing. I'll find a time slot that makes sense. I'm often on Attorney Dennis Sperling's live on his broadcast, and he generally has a broadcast almost every day. So I will most likely try to figure a way to precede or do a show after his, maybe an after stream. I'll keep everyone posted. Like I said, thanks so. I'm humbled. I am humbled by having you gentlemen in here. Just to shout out, Clarence, Roger Report, Chuku, like Mr. Albert. Jesus, bro. Salute to all of you guys. Thank you so much for just peeking in for a quick second. And again, I thought I'd be talking to myself for about 30 minutes. So again, I'm building this plane on the runway. I don't exactly know what the tone or tenor is going to be moving forward. Infantry Skills, what's up, man? What's going on, brother? Wow. Thank you guys so much for coming through. Like I said, I'm going to keep this going. Hopefully it runs a little bit smoother next time. Eventually I'll set it up to where I'll be able to bring you gentlemen up so we can have a little bit of a conversation and a back and forth. But, again, I'm humbled. Thank you so much. Roger Report, if you guys aren't following the Roger Report, make sure you follow and share his stuff. He's always on point. Always on point. Man, like I said, the love is out of control. How do I? And I'll give you guys wrenches and all that stuff once I figure all this good stuff out. But once again, thank you so much for coming through, guys. And I like to kind of end on this. Erykah Badu said it best. I'm an artist. I'm sensitive about my shit. And I'm gonna holler at you guys on the next one. Peace.